Most people believe saving money is simply a matter of discipline, but the experience of building a first $10,000 often feels less like a budgeting challenge and more like pushing against invisible resistance. Someone earns an income, pays rent, buys food, handles transport, replaces things that break, helps family when needed, and at the end of the month discovers that almost nothing remains. They may work hard, plan carefully, and still feel as if progress refuses to begin. This is why the first 10,000 can feel impossible. It is not only a number, it is the distance between surviving month to month and finally holding enough capital to create options. At lower savings levels, every small setback carries disproportionate force. A medical bill, car repair, delayed paycheck, or sudden travel expense does not merely interrupt growth, it often erases months of effort. When savings are near zero, life becomes financially fragile. Fragility changes behavior. People become more cautious, more stressed, and often more focused on immediate relief than long-term planning. That response is understandable because urgent problems demand urgent attention. Yet it also means the mind spends energy defending the present instead of building the future. The first 10,000 matters because it is often the stage where momentum begins. Before that point, saving feels like carrying water in a leaking bucket. After that point, leaks still exist, but they no longer empty everything at once. A person with a modest reserve can absorb surprises without restarting from zero each time. They can compare job offers more calmly, avoid some debt traps, wait for better opportunities, and think beyond the next bill. Money at this stage buys time, flexibility, and reduced panic more than luxury. There is also a mathematical reason the journey feels slow. If someone saves $200 per month, reaching 10,000 requires 50 months with no interruptions. That is more than 4 years. Increase the savings rate to $500 per month and it still takes 20 months. Assuming consistency. Many people underestimate how long steady accumulation takes because modern life trains us to expect quick results. Apps deliver instantly, entertainment streams immediately, and purchases arrive fast. Wealth does not follow that rhythm. Capital grows through repetition, not speed. Psychology adds another layer. Human beings feel progress when change is visible. Losing 1 kilogram, finishing a chapter, or cleaning a room gives immediate evidence. Saving money often feels invisible because the sacrifice happens now while the reward remains abstract. Saying no to impulse purchases creates no applause. Cooking at home does not feel dramatic. Skipping lifestyle inflation after a raise may look identical from the outside. Quiet decisions build wealth, but they rarely feel emotionally rewarding in the moment. This creates a dangerous comparison cycle. A person trying to save their first 10,000 may see others traveling, upgrading phones, dining out, or displaying purchases online. They compare their invisible progress to someone else's visible consumption. That comparison can make discipline feel like deprivation. Yet many displays of consumption reveal spending, not ownership. Some financed lifestyles are mistaken for wealth. Some polished appearances hide stress, debt, or instability. The saver may feel behind while actually moving forward. Another reason the first 10,000 feels difficult is that income growth usually lags behind expenses early in adulthood. Entry-level wages are often modest while housing, transportation, insurance, and basic living costs can be substantial. In this phase, even financially responsible people may have thin margins. They are not failing because they lack character. They are navigating a system where foundational costs can absorb most earnings. Understanding this matters because shame often replaces strategy. People blame themselves for structural pressure, then stop trying. Behavioral economics shows that scarcity changes cognition. When resources feel tight, attention narrows toward immediate needs. This can reduce mental bandwidth for planning, comparison shopping, skill building, or long-term optimization. The person is not less intelligent. They are carrying a heavier cognitive load. Constant financial stress taxes decision-making. That is one reason the climb toward early savings can feel exhausting beyond the math alone. Still, while the challenge is real, the first 10,000 is often built through a sequence of shifts rather than one dramatic event. The first shift is measuring reality clearly. Many people know roughly where money goes, but rough knowledge rarely changes outcomes. Exact numbers create leverage. When spending is categorized honestly, patterns appear. Recurring subscriptions, convenience spending, and used memberships, frequent delivery fees, interest charges, and emotional purchases become visible. Visibility turns vague frustration into specific choices. The second shift is separating fixed costs from variable costs. Fixed costs such as rent, insurance, debt payments, and utilities shape the entire game because they repeat each month. Reducing a recurring expense by $100 can matter more than cutting occasional small luxuries. A cheaper housing arrangement, renegotiated bill, lower interest refinance, or transport change can permanently widen the monthly gap between income and expenses. That gap is where savings are born. The third shift is increasing income capacity, not only reducing spending. There is a limit to how much most people can cut, but income can sometimes grow through skill acquisition, certification, negotiation, role changes, freelance work, language ability, or geographic mobility. Many people focus exclusively on frugality because it feels controllable, yet income expansion can accelerate progress more powerfully than endless minor cuts. The strongest path is often a combination of both. Then comes automation. Human motivation fluctuates. A person may feel disciplined one week and tired the next. Systems outperform moods. Automatic transfers to savings on payday reduce the need for repeated self-control. Even small consistent transfers create identity reinforcement. The person stops asking whether they should save this month and starts seeing saving as normal behavior. This psychological shift is subtle but important. Milestones also matter. 10,000 can feel distant, but 1,000, 3,000, and 5,000 are psychologically useful checkpoints. The brain responds better to near targets than remote ones. Reaching 1,000 proves the process works. Reaching 3,000 demonstrates resilience. Reaching 5,000 often marks the moment setbacks no longer erase everything. Progress compounds emotionally before it compounds financially. There is also the question of where the money sits. If savings remain mixed with daily spending funds, temptation and confusion increase. Separating emergency reserves from checking accounts can reduce accidental leakage. Structure supports discipline. Labels matter too. Money named future rent buffer or career transition fund often feels more protected than money called simply savings. Purpose increases resistance to impulse use. Historically, many households gained stability not through sudden riches but through modest reserves that reduced vulnerability. Economic shocks, recessions, layoffs, and inflation cycles repeatedly show that small cushions can produce outsized protection. $10,000 may not be life-changing everywhere, but for many households it can represent several months of breathing room, bargaining power, or recovery capacity. Stability is underrated because it is less visible than luxury. There is an identity conflict many people never discuss. Some individuals unconsciously associate saving with restriction, boredom, or lower status. Spending can feel expressive, social, or rewarding. If wealth building is framed internally as punishment, consistency becomes hard. The first 10,000 often requires rewriting the story. Saving is not the absence of life. It is purchasing future choices. It is converting present effort into future autonomy. The math of compounding also becomes more meaningful after this threshold. Early on, returns are small because the base is small. 5% on $500 feels trivial. 5% on 10,000 feels noticeable. This is why many quit too early. They judge the machine before enough fuel is inside it. Capital growth becomes interesting only after the initial pile exists. Consider two people. One reaches 10,000 at age 28 and continues modest contributions. Another delays until 38 because the early years felt futile. Even if both later become disciplined, the first person usually benefits from more years of optionality, investment exposure, and reduced emergencies. The lesson is not urgency or panic. It is that early thresholds influence later trajectories. Debt can slow this process dramatically. High-interest balances create negative compounding where progress leaks backward. In some cases, paying down expensive debt may be financially superior to stacking cash beyond a basic emergency buffer. This is why personal finance is contextual. The first 10,000 is not always a literal rule. Sometimes the true first milestone is escaping a system that charges interest faster than you can save. Environment matters too. If a person's social circle normalizes constant spending, progress becomes harder. Invitations, expectations, gifting pressure, and lifestyle mimicry can quietly drain surplus income. If the surrounding culture respects moderation and planning, saving becomes easier. Humans are social imitators more than we admit. Financial behavior is contagious in both directions. Technology can either help or hurt. Automatic investing, budgeting tools, price comparisons, and low-cost education can accelerate progress. But frictionless shopping, targeted advertising, one-click payments, and buy now pay later systems can weaken it. Modern commerce is designed to reduce pause time between desire and purchase. Building savings often means reintroducing pause time intentionally. Many people imagine they need perfect discipline to reach 10,000. In practice, they usually need recovery discipline. Mistakes happen. Overspending months happen. Emergencies happen. What matters is the ability to restart quickly without converting one setback into a permanent identity story. A bad month does not erase a good system unless someone abandons it. The emotional experience changes around the midpoint. At first, each contribution feels tiny relative to the goal. Later, accumulated progress itself becomes motivating. Someone with 6,000 saved often protects the process more fiercely than someone starting at zero because they can feel what has been built. Momentum is partly numerical and partly emotional. There is wisdom in viewing the first 10,000 as skill evidence rather than only money. It often proves budgeting skill, delayed gratification, negotiation ability, emotional regulation, planning capacity, and resilience under uncertainty. Those skills remain valuable even if the money is later spent on a real emergency. Capital can be depleted. Capability tends to remain. For some people, the number may need adjustment based on country, currency, family size, or cost of living. In expensive cities, 10,000 may be a modest cushion. In other contexts, it may represent major progress. The exact number matters less than the principle, reaching a meaningful reserve where shocks stop dominating every decision. When people say the first 10,000 feels impossible, they are often describing the hardest stage of wealth building, the stage where effort is high, visible reward is low, mistakes are costly, and identity is still forming. That stage can last longer than expected, which is why many conclude the process does not work. But often the system is working quietly before it becomes emotionally convincing. Eventually a person notices something subtle. Bills arrive and no panic follows. A job problem appears and options still exist. A needed purchase does not require debt. Time can be used more strategically. The account balance matters. But the deeper transformation is reduced desperation. Money's earliest gift is not status, it is space. So the first 10,000 feels impossible because it asks for patience before proof, discipline before applause, and consistency before momentum. Yet once built, it often changes the financial game not by making someone rich, but by making them harder to destabilize. That is why the beginning feels heavy, and why crossing it matters so much.